Hello. Good morning. Welcome to one of the friendlier places in the world. Happy that you're here and happy that I'm here. Let's sing a song together. You ready? Love is my decision. It's up to me. It's up to me to give of my heart, to give of my heart. Love is my decision. No one else can tell me to start, can tell me to start. Once I decide to change my mind, to change my mind, God will show me how. God will show me how. Love is my decision. My decision, my decision. Right here and now, right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me. It's up to me to stand on that bridge, to stand on that bridge. Love is my decision. No one else can make me forgive, can make me forgive. Once I decide to change my mind, to change my mind, God will show me how. God will show me how. Love is my decision. My decision right here and now, right here and now. One more time. Love is my decision. It's up to me. It's up to me to dance down that road, to dance down that road. Love is my decision. No one else can lighten my load, can lighten my load. And once I decide to change my mind, to change my mind, God will show me how. God will show me how. Love is my decision. My decision right here and now. My decision right here and now. Sing one more. Yeah, you're already standing. Great. Here we go. One more song together to start. And let me just say, in addition to being just a lovely guy, this guy is also a man of his word. And the reason I say that at this particular moment is I was last year in April of 2023, and I sang this next song with you all 1 year and 1 month ago. And at the end of that service, this gentleman said, how about we have another Daniel Nahmod visit next year around this time? And here we are 13 months later, and I'm back. And it means a lot to me. So thank you. You know how there's a big difference between loving somebody and liking them? Like, loving can kind of be easier than liking, don't you think? And is also, in a sort of weirdly similar way, being invited someplace to sing is flattering. Being invited back, that's even better. So thank you for having me back, even if you regret it by the end of the day. Here we go. All right, so let's sing this song together. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. One more time. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just what I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just what I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Again. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Nice job.
Please take your seats. And I suddenly feel compelled to say this out loud. Susan, I really do like you. So there's no mistake. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. It's a pleasure to welcome you on this gorgeous spring day. And I also want to acknowledge and welcome those of you that are tuned in on our YouTube channel. So nice to have you with us. We feel your loving energy as being a part of this service. Let me take a moment to remind everybody to please silence your cell phones so that we can go through the service without any interruptions. And do we have any first-time visitors with us today, by chance? Okay, if we have anybody, they're not owning up to it, so we will go on. Before I do anything else, I just want to say a word to acknowledge the Board of Trustees for giving and putting the money forth to give our stairwell, where everybody comes into the church, a facelift. If you like it, please tell the board members accordingly. And if you don't like it, just keep it to yourself, okay? So in preparation for today, we Googled, Susan specifically Googled, Daniel Nemad. And this is what came up. So the question is, can you pick him out? He's in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of anticlimactic since he already did 2 songs, but let's officially welcome the real Daniel Nemad. I just have to say this because obviously Daniel is an incredible musical talent, but to be with Daniel Nemad is to be in the presence of somebody who is loving, compassionate, caring, and all of the good stuff that we're trying to drum in and resurrect from deep inside. So we truly are gifted by your presence here this morning. Thank you. And with that, I want to invite Bobby to please come forward and do our daily word reading.
And for sure, you are welcome here and wherever you are on your spiritual journey. We are so glad you chose to be with us today. So I ask you to just relax, sit back, close your eyes if you have a mind to, as I read today's daily word. Sunday, May 19th. I am a living expression of God. In the book of Exodus, Moses asks God his name. God responds, I am who I am. I am is the name of the divine presence within me. a reminder of my spiritual nature. Sometimes I may forget my divine identity by thinking of myself as weak, incapable, or unfortunate. If I have spoken disempowering words about myself, I release those thoughts and stop using those words. Each time I say, I am, I strengthen my awareness of the truth of my being. I am God's life, love, wisdom, and strength expressing uniquely as me. As I pay attention to my thoughts and words, I am able to recognize and release limiting thoughts more quickly. My awareness of my true identity grows stronger and stronger. And from Matthew 16:15, he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" I am a living expression of God. And I will be here after the service to pray with you, hold spiritual space, and just be open and receptive to your requests, whether they be a challenge or whether they be joy. We love hearing those. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. And now I invite you to please join with me in praying our Spirit's unfolding vision prayer. Guided by divine wisdom, inspired by divine imagination, centered in divine love, and knowing that God is our source, we boldly move forth in faith as we allow Spirit's expanding vision to unfold in our lives, the life of this spiritual community, and our world. Thank you, God. Amen. And now if you wish to stand or wish to remain seated, either way is great, but please join in singing and praying the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Please be seated. Now it's that fun time of the service in which we get to bless our children. I invite our children and their sponsors to come forward. All right. We got a good age spread this morning. Join me in blessing them, please. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you, and know that you are empowered to do great things.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
And now I'm going to take a seat and enjoy what's coming. What is coming?
What is coming? I've never understood how you turned out so good with all that you've had to endure. No one expected you to make the best of you. The deck stacked against you for sure. The more that I learn, the more I admire how you never got burned, being forged in the fire. Yeah, an ordinary mortal would have quit by now, with a life like a field full of mines. You're human, I know, made of muscle and bone, but you must have steel in your spine. You never talk about when you first figured out that you'd have to go it alone. Breaks my heart to picture you, a child hiding out of view, so young to fight on your own. But still here you stand, and still here you are, igniting the world with your luminous heart. Yeah, an ordinary mortal would have quit by now, with a life like a field full of mines. You're human, I know, only muscle and bone, but you must have steel in your spine, and that would explain how you never admit any pain. So let me just say, that child has a lot to be proud of, but no longer needs to keep the world at bay. If you were mortal, you'd have quit by now. You've been counted out so many times. You're human like me. You can bruise, you can bleed, but you must have steel in your spine. Yeah, a mortal would have quit by now, but your light was determined to shine. There's so much more than they see. A superhero to me. You must have steel in your spine. You must have steel in your spine. Oh, 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 oh. So when I sing that song, do you think of somebody who you related to? Whether you're yourself or somebody else? Yeah, I mean, I think I've told you guys before that when I'm singing, oh yeah, I did. I know I said it last year. That when I'm singing, I'm actually thinking about the lines as I'm singing them. It's not an act, and it's not a show. I'm feeling it, right? And so that particular song was originally written inspired by a conversation with somebody I thought I knew. And the person I thought I knew was cool and generous and successful and talented and a great person to hang out with and a good, loyal friend, just a solid gold person. And then she and I had about an hour that we'd never had before to privately just talk. And I find out from her that her childhood was approximately as hard as a childhood could get. Foster kid, adopted into an abusive family, left home from there as quickly as she could, and that everything I was looking at now, years and years later, came from that. That was a real surprise for me. And I'm thinking, literally, as I didn't tell her I was thinking it, but I'm sitting there thinking, I thought you were impressive, but you are way, way more than impressive. Like, this is a survivor. This is a stronger person. Like, you could wear a cape, an S on your chest. And so I wrote that song inspired by that conversation, and then I sang it at one of my Facebook shows online. And within a day, I'd heard from 3 good friends of mine, all asking me if I'd written it about them. So, of course, I said yes to all of them. And but it got me thinking about how universal that misunderstanding may be. Meaning, the person, like I'm not joking when I say, like, to me, it's harder to like than to love. Like, loving we can summon, liking not always. And but so whether we like or love somebody or don't like them or don't love them, we probably don't know them. And if we did, it's unlikely, from my observation. As always, feel free to disagree with anything I say and overrule it. So I'm just talking about my observations and my feelings on this, but it seems to me that everybody in this room could crack everybody else's heart open with their story if we were to stop and listen to it. Something you went through, each one of you and me too, something each of us went through would dazzle the rest of us with how hard it must have been to come through. Somebody in this room probably had cancer as a kid. Somebody in this room was almost certainly abused as a kid. Somebody in this room had parents who acrimoniously divorced. Right? Somebody in this room was an army brat and moved 7 times or more. Somebody in this room was bullied terribly. Somebody in this room had a learning disability that was undiagnosed. Somebody in this room never felt attractive. Somebody in this room struggled in every class. So we sit next to each other, and that's nice, and we like each other sometimes, and we love each other as best we can. But then, and most conversations are, how you doing? Good. How's it going? Great. How was your weekend? Fantastic. How's work? Awesome. How are the kids? Wonderful. And frankly, I don't know about you, I usually don't want to hear more detail than that. My head's already too full. So I'm not like arguing for long, detailed answers to, simple chit-chat questions. I worked in an office, and it was a long time ago, and I still remember how painful, and I'm not kidding, how painful the elevator conversations are with coworkers. Hey, Joe. Hey, Bob. How's it going with that project? Great. Kids good? Great. And then you get off the elevator. And I mean, you really didn't say anything at all. And that just has to be the way life it just has to be that way. There's too many people. You ever walk through an airport and try to make eye contact with people? It's not comfortable. Nobody wants to. It's too crowded. Life is too crowded. Streets are too crowded. You know what I mean? There's just too much going on. So within reason and within reasonable expectations, you and I are not going to dump out our stories on strangers or even loved ones most of the time. But it is something to think about, that a person you don't know, a bad waiter at a restaurant, a person, a teller at the bank who can't seem to get your deposit right, the customer service agent on the phone who just won't help. These things happen, right? The store clerk who won't take your return. The person in the car next to you who won't let you in when the lanes are merging. I mean, there's a lot of moments where it's easy to put up your dukes, But it is still at the same time true that the person who is acting like a jerk, and I would use a harsher word if it wasn't into a microphone in a house of worship, that person may very well be a living, breathing triumph of perseverance, simply to have arrived at the jerk in front of you at the counter, simply to be the person badly rolling your burrito. I'm serious. Or the family member who you can't stand. What they've been through, you may think you know, and you probably don't. And they probably will never tell you. And this is not a free pass for being abusive or mean or cruel, but it is just something to consider, because any one of us could stand up in this room right now and knock the rest of us out with what you've endured. So Michael sprung this title on me about 10 minutes before the service, and that makes life interesting for me. I have no problem with that. So when I think of the heart, and I thought of that song, I told you I was already thinking of some of the things I've already said, and some of the things I want us to say relate to heart and soul of a journey. And what I really want to talk about, and starting with that thought about how much flows beneath the surface of everyone you've ever met, stuff that you'll never see and never know. I sometimes joke that it's not at all a joke, but that we all are kind of doomed from the outset to be raised by humans. It's really bad luck. I'm not sure what species would be better, but humans, man, we are a mess. If you have a day where the majority of the time you understand your feelings and your reactions to things, I congratulate you, because I'm not even close to a majority of the time. I do my very best with Jude, and I fail more often than I succeed, probably, in figuring out why I just said no, or why I got annoyed, or why I'm insisting on him doing something one way versus another. I mean, it's just, most of it is unconscious. So what I really want to talk about today is this thought of bringing what is usually an unconscious awareness to conscious. Like this notion that the person you're sitting next to, a person you don't know, who you didn't come with, is actually kind of a superhero, worthy of admiration, even if not affection, just worthy of like a core of respect. That's an interesting thought to have when you're challenged by somebody, a teacher or a student or a child or a parent. People come through a lot, and just to bring the thought consciously, maybe they're doing the best they can, and maybe you don't have much respect for how well they're doing, but just to be aware, they may be the first person in their entire family to graduate high school, much less college. This might be an achievement, what I'm seeing. I don't know if that makes sense, or if that applies to you or somebody in your life. But another thing that I like to bring out to conscious is there are daily things that can feel mundane, but that don't have to be. It's something I love to do is to ask somebody in a situation like is to ask enough questions until I find out something that's particularly interesting about the moment, where it might seem ordinary and normal and routine, but then you find out this isn't routine at all. Just like you find out a person isn't just the waiter. If you ask a waiter sometimes a couple of questions, you find out they're a first-generation American, right? This is just an example. You find out they're a first-generation American. Then you ask, where'd your parents come from? And you find out that they escaped, the war in. Actually, I knew a family in Orange County who was Persian, and they're super successful. These two guys are brothers, super successful, super nice, married to lovely women. Everything in their lives looked just right. And then at some point, I asked them a little bit about where they came from, and I realized that they had the reason they'd left Iran was because their parents couldn't take it anymore, the bombing during the Iran-Iraq war. So these guys were little boys in their home in Iran while bombs were falling from Saddam Hussein, right? Well, all of a sudden, their story's much richer than just two nice guys. And this is, anyway, you get what I'm saying? Like there's more to a lot of stories. I had maybe you'll think of a family member if I tell this little quick story. This is a woman, I talked last time I was here about that I'm from a Holocaust surviving family, that my grandparents essentially escaped with their lives from their little town in Poland, and that no one else in their family did. They had two brothers, one brother on each side. My grandmother and my grandfather each went with a brother, four of them left their village and never saw anyone in their family ever again. Well, that brother of my grandmother, who went with them, one of the four, ended up marrying a woman named Manya. Manya died maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Truly one of the loveliest people in my entire life story. I mean, one of the sweetest, kindest, most welcoming, warmest people in my entire life. You think of somebody who is one of the warmest, most welcoming, loveliest people in your life, right? Well, in Manya's particular case, she was I believe, a young teenager. She might have been 13 or 14 years old. And the Nazi army was approaching where she was, and the Russian army was retreating from where she was. And the Russian army, to save as many lives as they could, as they retreated, were scooping children that they found on the streets off the street into the back of trucks and driving away from the front. And Manya was on the street and was scooped up into the back of a truck and carried away from the front, and her life was saved. When that happened, it was the last day of the life she had ever known. It was the end. Like my Bubby and Zadie, they had a terrible time. But they each had a brother with them for the rest of their lives. They grew old with their brothers. Manya had absolutely no one on earth after that day until she married my grandmother's brother, Saul. So Manya, I'm sure, went to the bank and people thought, what a nice little old lady, you know. She wasn't quite an aunt or a grandmother to me, but she sure acted like it. But you wouldn't know unless you found out that story, that this is somebody who would have been entitled to be as mean or as cold or as angry or as sad as anybody on earth. You know, and it happens. This kind of story happens. It just happens to be my family. Sadly, there's nothing even exceptional about it. There are millions and millions of kids of all kinds from all over the world. I mean, if the ancestors, if slave ancestors in America could talk, they would tell these stories. They would destroy us. So how do you end up like a Manya, kind and welcoming and warm and loving? It makes the way she is that much more amazing and beautiful. The way she was, I mean, that much more beautiful. So you can be having a normal experience with somebody. You can be talking to a little old lady in a bank or a restaurant or a bookstore, and with the right question, or with just an extra 30 seconds of listening, just that little conversation could become so much more meaningful, or like a connection and forget admiration. I mean, admiration's good, but just an awareness of humanity, of the significance of something, where otherwise it would have remained unknown or at least unconscious. You know, if we were to find, obviously we couldn't, right? But if we were to find, I'm going to assume it's a man. There's no I'm just kind of making a statistical guess that it was a male carpenter who carved these beams, right? They're pretty beautiful. And there's extra details on them that were not necessary. Somebody took a little extra pride in rounding the edges of it. I'm sorry, I'm fixing up a house, so I look at wood, you know. But I mean, and the stain, the color of it is beautiful. I mean, these wood beams are beautiful. In fact, and on Friday night, I was in this beautiful old 100-year-old church in Milwaukee singing. And it was similar in the sense that the ceiling was clearly made with care. Well, I have the carpenter at our house who intervenes every time I'm about to destroy our house by doing something I'm not qualified to do. His name is Horacio, right? Well, Horacio is a tradesman. You and I, maybe you're one of them, or maybe you've hired one, a plumber or a carpenter or somebody to dig a ditch in your yard, or I don't know if you've ever tried to do your own sprinkler system in a yard, but I just encourage you not to, because it's a nightmare. Stay out of the sprinkler aisle of Home Depot unless you want to call a search party in about 6 hours. So I've gotten to really appreciate the talent that's required from tradespeople. It's incredible. It's dazzling. And you just don't know until you try it yourself, which I have tried, and it's usually catastrophic, you know. So Horacio is a carpenter. Well, he's just a 41-year-old guy named Horacio. I'll just give him his last name too, Lopez. If you're in Orange County and you want to hire a carpenter, you couldn't do better. Horacio Lopez, a good man and an outstanding carpenter. And I shouldn't have said his last name, because now I'm about to tell. He probably would be okay with it. Anyway, he is a carpenter in Orange County, California, and became a carpenter when he was a teenager to support his wife, and a baby. And his that baby is now this tall, and strong as an ox, and a kind, good-hearted, soft-spoken kid, but giant and very strong. Well, everybody's tall next to me, but you know what I'm saying. And so you could have Horacio come over and build your house, and that's meaningful. But to know that he and to know the pride with which he does it, the fact that he sort of fell into needing a trade at 17 or 18, but then discovered that he loves it, right? It's more meaningful than writing a guy a check for fixing your porch. We talk to him and we find out this is like a seriously lovely human being, and it's easy to miss. It's easy to miss all, in everyday activities. It's easy to miss, it's tempting to miss, and it's convenient to miss. Now, how about for yourself? What is? I'm just going to pose the question. Something that you love to do, something that makes you happy to do. What is it? Sitting on your porch and reading a book, knitting, playing piano. Now, so these are sometimes a daily thing, a favorite beverage or a recipe you love, right? Life is filled with these things, with interactions with people you don't know, and with daily activities that you kind of only notice a little. It just is, right? Well, all the examples, every example seems trivial until you think about it. That's kind of the entire point of what I'm talking about. So like this binder, yeah, it's cool, it's nice, it's filled with my lyrics, right, in case I need to cheat, But I also know that this binder used to be filled with Pokemon cards from my little boy, right? So it's not just a binder, because he's outgrown his Pokemon cards. He still has them, but he's not interested anymore. So, and he was like, yeah, Daddy, you can use the binder. So is it just a binder? Kinda, but kinda not. It's kind of also gonna, as long as I can think of it and remember, as long as I remain conscious of it, it's a little moment of generosity from my boy. Sure, Dad, you can use it. I mean, that's kind of nice, from a kid to share something like that. But it also is an age he'll never be again. A smallness to his little head that he's already almost taller than me. He's grown 4 inches this year, and he's way taller than my poor little mom, who's kind of shrinking, and she would tell you she is. I think he's taller than my dad, and he's 12. To be fair, I was taller than my dad when I was 12. But so it's just a binder, except that it's a little piece of my boy I take on the road. And I actually hadn't thought about it until just now, just talking about it. So did you think of something you enjoy doing? Now, just ask yourself, where did it come from? Let's just experiment for 2 seconds. Bringing something unconscious into conscious. Like imagining the actual carpenter who built the wood, who built these beams, and what it meant to him, let's say, again, assuming it's a him, what it meant to him to have the job. For all we know, it was the biggest job he'd ever had in his life. It might have paid to renovate his own home, or he might have set aside the money to put his only child into college. Or it might have paid for cancer treatments for his wife. Right? Everything, this is something I've learned from fixing up the house. Everything in a house is hard. Everything took effort to build. Everything required real skill and expertise. The people who put it there, where'd they get their expertise? The story runs rich and deep. It really does. For every one of the people who laid this carpet in this room, they arrived there somehow. They might have been raised to lay carpet. They might be the 4th generation of carpet layers in their family. They might be the proudest thing their grandfather ever did, was raise a skilled carpet layer as a grandson or granddaughter. Or they may be what some would call an illegal immigrant. Technically, it's just technically true. Somebody who snuck into the country. Why did they sneak into the country? Because it was the only way they could think of to either save their children's lives or to send money back home. And now they're putting carpet on the floor, and if they got paid $120 in a day, if they're lucky or whatever it is, they sent 80 of it back to their family that's having an incredible hardship in Nicaragua or something. So this carpet fed they're actually hungry children. We don't know. But these stories are in everything in our lives. I have a Taylor guitar, right? It's made by a guy named Bob Taylor, started the company maybe 50 years ago. I've never met Bob Taylor, but his son fixed up my guitar. It was at the factory, it just got repaired, and the guy who handed it back to me said, by the way, thought you might be interested to know. Oh, no, not his son, his nephew. Bob's nephew was the one who worked on your guitar. Well, that's awesome, you know. And if I was to go a little bit deeper and find out where the wood came from, that's somebody, because the Taylor Guitar Company is very meticulous and in integrity about sustainable wood from all over the world. I bet it'd be interesting to know who cut down the maple tree in a sustainable way. I promise you, for sure. They don't do it any other way. And who milled that tree? That could be also a third generation. You know, they might have used a machine that they inherited from the great-grandfather. You know, one of these old, crazy sawmill-type machines. No idea. Who upholstered the chairs? Who made your shirt? You know? Who cut your hair? How'd they learn to cut your hair? So, what is it you enjoy doing? It's an unconscious habit, but it can also be heart and soul, for real. In your daily life, if you're feeling, and we all do, if you're feeling sometimes like the news is dismal, growing old sucks, my stock fund is falling, my prospects are diminishing, my eyesight is fading, my hairline is receding, my belly is growing, my family is splitting, whatever it is, wherever you're at, there is still, and I'm not a woo-woo I don't mean it woo, and I don't mean to sound like a Hallmark card. I mean it in a literal, practical way. There are things to celebrate and enjoy, and there are things that will crack your heart wide open in your daily life. It might be a person you've never talked to or made eye contact with. It might be just remembering, something I talk about, is I know why I play piano. Okay, just like, again, a random example. So whatever it is, if you play cards, where'd you learn to play cards? Maybe you haven't thought about it. Oh my God, that's right. My older brother taught me to play cards when I was a kid. And he used to take all my money, whether I won or not. Or whatever, whatever the story is. There's richness in it. The journey's richer. The life story, your life story and your daily life. I also don't mean to be patronizing. Maybe you know this. Maybe you're very likely you're better at staying present like this than I am. I'm just talking about it in case it's interesting, in case it spurs a thought or reminds you of something that is lovelier than you have recently noticed. So I play piano because when my Bubby and Zadie arrived in the United States in 1950 or so, they were absolutely shattered, and how could anyone blame them for having lost everything and everyone in their lives. They arrived in the United States. They were sponsored to emigrate to Chicago by a distant relative who my uncle says sponsored over 100 people to come from Europe, Holocaust surviving members. Any family member they saw, they found in the book, in the directory of survivors, of Jewish survivors in Europe, they sponsored to emigrate to Chicago, helped them set up businesses, sign leases, sign loans, get their kids into school, taught them how to buy groceries, right? These are the things they did. Well, in their house was a little upright piano. And my Bubby and Zadie arrived in America, and I think my mom said they slept on the living room floor of that family's house when they first arrived. And there was a piano in that house, and my Bubby and Zadie saw that piano and said, and they apparently said the rest of their lives, we figured, I guess a nice American family has a piano. So they bought a cheap little upright piano. I played that same exact upright piano 2 days ago, still in the family. My aunt and uncle live in Highland Park. They have that piano. A piano I used to play recitals, little pieces for my Bubby on, and Zadie, when I was a boy, when I was taking lessons, I'd go to their house. And my parents, by the way, then, of course, what did they do? What did my mom do? Bought a little upright piano, put it in the living room, and I guess a nice American family gives their kids little piano lessons for a little while. Where I took, after I played that little piano, my cousin's daughter, little girl, played 4 notes for me on that piano, and then my cousin and I dropped my cousin's daughter off at her piano lesson. She's having a piano lesson because there was a piano in that house in 1950. Right? So it just looks like a little girl going to a piano lesson. Oh no, but it's so much more than that. If I remain conscious of it, if I take 5 extra seconds to think of it. It's a beautiful, interconnected, deep, lovely story, your life and mine, way lovelier than we notice most days. If you're anything like me, I'm sorry to project. Maybe you walk around and really find the richness in it, but I miss it a lot of the time. But when I take a few seconds to think this person I'm talking to has steel in their spine, my God. When I think about Manya, I think of the hugs, but then I think of her story and I think what she went through and how she came out the other side. And the hugs she gave me before she died, I don't even know where she found that ability. To be that beautiful with people after having gone through what you went through. I think similarly of somebody like, one of the examples in my mind of the most awe-inspiring joy is Louis Armstrong. I don't know how you would do if you were living in a country that segregated you and treated you worse than a second-class citizen, that told you that you can go and eat there, but you better not go eat there. And you can stay there overnight, but you better not stay overnight there. And your band can play that gig, but you're not allowed in that hotel to play that gig. I don't know how you would feel, but I would not be a fountain of joy for the entire world. Louis Armstrong was. How did he manage it? It's already impressive to hear him sing a song, to feel that gravelly, beautiful, the smile in his voice. It seems to never have gone away. How did Ray Charles sing America the Beautiful the way he did? Having grown up in a segregated, hateful, dangerous society for him personally, that he literally couldn't stay in the same hotel as his band. Right? If their bus went down the wrong highway, their lives were in danger. His life was in danger. Soldiers, how did soldiers, Native American soldiers and black soldiers, go overseas and fight for their country, knowing that when they came home, they'd have fewer rights than when they were in Europe? I wouldn't have had it. So it's already impressive. War heroes, it's already impressive. But then you scratch the surface and you find out it took a whole lot more extra to go do that than it even looks on the surface. It's impressive, and then it's way more. It's like much deeper and more amazing. To hear What a Wonderful World, and when I think of the man who sang it and the world he was in when he sang it, I don't think I would have been up for singing a song about what a wonderful world it was. I just wouldn't have. It runs much deeper. It's much more beautiful even than it already is, if that makes sense. So actually, let me sing a song to close. And, So I'm always only trying to be real, and also trying to maybe provoke a thought or a feeling or memory. I mean, I don't have any grander goal than that. But I hope you thought of something that maybe you hadn't been paying attention to lately, or hadn't noticed, or hadn't felt as much good as it actually is or could feel. Heart and soul. Life is not just, even though it looks like it frequently, life is not just bills and doctor appointments and schedules and school and savings and politics and news, and it's not just that. And living with someone is not just, did you take out the trash, and did you write it down in the calendar what we're doing Thursday night? And I know it's obvious to say that, but sometimes we forget. So the last story I'll tell you is about this song. It gave me one of the most beautiful moments I've ever had, for me personally, especially a moment amidst real despair and sadness. A friend of mine, Richard Rogers, who's a Unity minister in Phoenix, called me up right after Hurricane Katrina happened and said, a long time ago now, but still not that long, I guess, and said, will you meet me let's go to the Houston Astrodome. I was in New York at my brother's wedding. He was in Phoenix. He said, let's meet at the Astrodome and let's go visit with people. Because, I don't know if you remember, that's where they went. People who had lost everything. Their homes were washed away, their neighborhoods were gone, their possessions were gone, their cars were gone, and they were bussed out and evacuated, essentially. And thousands had ended up temporarily cotted in green cots on the floor of the Houston Astrodome, which was a baseball stadium that had been closed. And when I saw it, I understood fully why it had been closed, because it was awful. Horrible looking building and not well repaired and so on. So I said, sure, I'll meet you. And he picked me up at the Houston airport, and we went to the Astrodome. And for 2 days, we walked the floor, and he's a big guy, and he gives big hugs, and he's a wonderful minister and big-hearted guy, and he goes around and just talks with people. And I walked around with that guitar and sang songs for people, whoever wanted a song. And one of these moments was sitting next to a woman on a cot, a grandmother with her granddaughter, and I said, would you like to hear a song? And she said, whatever. And I said, do you mind if I sit? And she said, no, that's fine. And this song came to my mind. And I sang it for her that day. And as I said, actually, you know what, I'm going to sing you this song, and I think you're going to know it. And if you feel like it, if you feel like closing your eyes and singing with me, you're invited to. And she did. And I cannot know for her what it did, but I know what it did for me, which is it reminded me of what a song can do and what a moment of quiet can do. Maybe even what a little company can do. And it's, probably Louis Armstrong's most famous song. But on that particular day, it was the best I could offer to that lady, who I hope she is well wherever she is. So I'll just close with this. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I say to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. Want to sing with me? I hear babies cry. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know, than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I say to myself, what a wonderful world. You're welcome.
Absolutely, thank you for sharing your wisdom and for sharing, more than that, your heart and soul and helping us in our journey. Now it's time for our love offering, our sacrament of giving and receiving. We are so grateful for your contributions to this church, and we are mostly grateful because the dollars make a difference. There's no two ways about it. But we are mostly grateful for your hearts and your souls that you pour into this loving church family, day after day, week after week, month after month. And so please join me in praying our affirmations. God is my instant, constant, abundant source of supply. In divine love flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all the good that I am, I have, I give, and I receive. Divine love flowing through us blesses and multiplies all the good that we have, we give, and we receive.
We're doing a workshop today, yes? 12:30 to 2:30 or so?
I think it was 12:30 to 2, or whatever.
12:30 to 2? Okay.
2:30, whatever.
So here's what the workshop is. It's going to be an hour and a half of calm, of music, of questions, of quiet time, and of a little bit of sharing if you feel like it. We're just going to take stock of where we're at, how we're doing, how the year's going, plans we have for the rest of the year, how we're feeling. And if that sounds open-ended, that's exactly right. It's meant to be a deep breath and a little bit of time that I know I personally don't take very often. So workshop sounds a little harder working than it is. We're going to sit, and I'm going to sing you a couple songs and ask you some questions, and we'll have time to think and feel and check in how we're doing. So that's 12:30, and you're invited. And I know you already know, if you were here last year, all the doodads, the Namod Family Craft Show on my table over there. But I have my wife's silversmith jewelry, and I have a little bit of my woodworking and my music, and I have a USB drive still that has 14 albums on it, a little flash drive. And as I'm sure I said last year, it's like 180 songs now. And I'm sure I told you last year that if you don't know what a USB flash drive is, you don't want it. All right, so you know what? I had just a little song to do for you that came to mind as I'm telling that story of Louis Armstrong. Because for me, I told you at the beginning that when I sing a song, I'm actually thinking about it and feeling it, like I'm processing it as I go. And that goes even for the cover songs. Like if I'm singing a Louis Armstrong song, I always think of that woman, that grandmother. Always, whenever I sing that song, I always think of that cot and that horrible situation in that Astrodome. And it was the bleakest place I've ever been. It really was. And those 3 minutes with her, I'd like to think that it made 3 minutes of difference for her. For me, it was indelible, unforgettable. And there's another song, another old-timey song, that I think I'm going to sing for you now for 2 minutes. And it's a song by a songwriter named Johnny Mercer. And I had never heard the song until I discovered it as I was looking into Johnny Mercer. And the reason I was looking into Johnny Mercer, this is about 2002 maybe or something, is I had offered to volunteer to sing at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. And I went in and sang, but when I was greeted at the door by the volunteer coordinator, I was greeted at the door that said the Johnny Mercer Arts Foundation. And I said, why is Johnny Mercer's name on this door? And she said, because Johnny Mercer left a percentage of his royalties in perpetuity to Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. So every time she said, every time we hear a Johnny Mercer song in a TV show or in a movie, we get excited because we know, and I could finish her sentence for her. I said, you know that 6 months later or 9 months later, there's going to be a check. Because it takes a while for the money to went through, but you get royalties, you know. And she said, you know, we always get excited. And she said, therefore, we pay our volunteers to play music. I'm like, no, this is really true. I said, no, you are not paying me to offer to sing in a children's hospital. And she said, please, it's Johnny Mercer's money. I'm like, no, seriously. I said, but I'll tell you this. If you ever need somebody to sing a Johnny Mercer song for something, I'm your guy. And she said, actually, we have an event coming up in a month or two. Yes, please come back and sing a Johnny Mercer song. And I did research into some of his music, and I found a song that, as far as I can tell, he is the only person who ever recorded it. And I still haven't recorded it, but I learned it, and every so often I find somebody, I mean, there's been like 3 people in the whole United States in 25 years or 20 years who have ever heard this song before. But I think it's lovely. It's a little Johnny Mercer song that you've probably never heard. And like I say, for me, if you're looking for heart and soul in a daily life, is it just a song? Sure. But it's also a guy who cared enough about kids. I mean, imagine the legacy. The songs are a legacy to begin with, but you hear a dream when you're feeling blue. You hear that song in a movie. The Arts Foundation of Children's Hospital Los Angeles just got $150. I mean, think about that. He's been gone a long time, and he's still doing it, still doing good with his music. You know, like I say, things are richer than they can at first appear. So here's a little Johnny Mercer song for you before we wrap up. Late. I'm sorry. Nah, that key will kill everybody. Let's try this one. Nah, that key's a little boring. Sorry, inside of my mind. What key should we do it in? Anybody have an idea? Let's do that one. Oh, the bathtub ran over again while I was lying there and dreaming of you. And the tub ran over as tubs'll do, and the ceiling got soaking again. The folks below began saying, dreaming about your baby's okay, but the house is floating away. Yes, I guess I heard the water, but I never bothered to look. I thought we were in the country, and the water was the tinkle of a babbling brook. So the bathtub ran over again while I was lying there dreaming, and I'm always dreaming of you. So before we drown the whole darn town, I think you better say I do. Yes, I guess I heard the water, but I never bothered to look. I thought we were in the country and the water was the tinkle of a babbling brook. So the bathtub ran over again while I was lying there dreaming. And I'm always dreaming of you. So before we drown the whole darn town, I think you better say I do. I think you better say I do. There you go. Yeah. Isn't that exactly what you figured I would sing?
Not in 1,000 years. I actually had heard the name Johnny Mercer, but I could not recount a single song that he had. I'm sure he had some pop.
Probably like 20 songs you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the
Because
most successful American pop songwriters. Yeah.
because I'm old, so I've been, I've lived through them. So, a few announcements. Daniel already mentioned his workshop that starts at 12:30. Go downstairs, grab some food or whatever. Do not bring the food back up into the sanctuary. Okay. And join in the workshop, and of course the concert tonight at 6 p.m. And I also wanted to make mention of the wares that Daniel has brought with that is for sale. Some that
Wares?
wares.
Where are they?
Where if you should buy something if you have the wherewithal. But there's jewelry, and right, and woodworking, and beautiful. I got something for my daughter last year. She loves it. The men's group is meeting online this Tuesday. The group meets the first and third Tuesday of each month, and all men are invited to attend. The Roots and Wings ceremony is a meaningful time as we will pay tribute to the dedication of our youngsters and teachers for their spiritual endeavors. After the ceremony, we will celebrate with a yummy ice cream social. Also, the youth will have the opportunity to skate in the lot. More information is in your bulletin, and we are looking forward to this memorable and fun event. Please contact Mary Noruzzi with any questions. So that concludes our announcements, and it's time for our congregational blessing. I invite you to stand, turn and face one another, or look across the aisle, and then remain standing for our prayer of protection, and we'll sing out to our peace song. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you, and know that you are empowered to do great things. In a prayer of protection, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us wherever we are. God is, and all is well. Sing it out. Do Daniel proud here.